Thanks for watching. Our prayer is that this message will help you grow closer to God. Visit us at hwcagra.com for more great content.
Kind of gets the blood going a little bit, doesn't it? Let it go a little bit longer. Bob's nodding his head. Sharon's getting ready to get on the guitar. Kirby's smiling big. Why in the world would we be playing Eye of the Tiger before church today? All right, we can let her go. How many recognize that song this morning? Come on, how many? Raise your hand. I want to see how many recognize that song. How many are like, why is Pastor Chris playing Eye of the Tiger while the offering is being received? And before we get into the word, there is a reason. I promise you that. We recognize that song, The Eye of the Tiger, made famous by its use in which movie? Can somebody name the movie? Which number? 2. Wrong. 3. Rocky 3. Does anybody know who the bad guy in Rocky 3 was, if you will? Not the Russian. You're close. Man, you're making like a sandwich. Mr. T, I pity the fool who don't know that answer today. Not really. The movies have been around for quite a while. The song made famous in its use in Rocky 3, a movie highlighting the life of a boxer that almost lost his way. We know the story, Adrian, right? The Italian stallion that makes his way from nothing to champion, right? Fighting his way, through everything. I don't want any spoil alerts for those who maybe have not seen it, but Apollo Creed and making his mark in the boxing industry and going from, living in the streets of Philadelphia to being on top of the boxing world. He was on the top of the mountain. He was the champion. He's making all kinds of money. He's doing all kinds of different fights. If you remember in Rocky 3, he even takes on Hulk Hogan. Anybody remember this movie? All right, a few of us. Doug's giving me the thumbs up. He takes on Hulk Hogan as a kind of a fundraiser match, and he's winning. He's winning. And he's basking in the glory and the fame that all comes with the winning in the ring. However, as he is doing this, he's losing strength. Along comes the bad guy, Clubber Lang, played by Mr. T, a passionate, loudmouth challenger that wants to place Rocky's strength to the test. Clubber Lang was hungry, if you will. He was passionate about the sport, and he was willing to go toe-to-toe with the world's champion to prove that he was better. And when the test comes, and when the time is right, Rocky fails the test. And in this song, if you listen to the lyrics, the reason why is given. Rocky had traded his passion of boxing for glory and fame, and in doing so, became weak in the ring. This morning, we are talking about unbroken strength. How God desires to overwhelm our weariness with His power and His might. And like the story of Rocky 3, I fear many try to find strength in things that actually drain us of power. Rocky felt that he could continue to ride his fame and stay on top, but his fame had weakened his understanding of the fight. He had forgotten the hard work that it took to get him to the top of the mountain. He had forgotten the passion that it was required to go toe-to-toe in the ring with what the world would consider to be the best challengers. His glory had taken over. His fame had clouded his vision, had weakened his understanding of the fight. He didn't get where he was by making a name for himself. He had to fight with passion, one opponent at a time. As we continue, I want to define this word strength. What is strength? The first definition, when you look this up on Google or Yahoo, whichever your search engine preference would be, The definition that pops up is the quality or state of being physically strong. The quality or state of being physically strong. And while this is true, we know that strength is more than this. Strength can be seen in our emotions or mental capabilities. Strength can be witnessed in our ability to press on and to take a stand, to take a hit and to keep on going. How many know what I'm talking about this morning? One might not be able to bench press 250 pounds, this guy. But that person might be able to stand for their marriage despite the challenges that might be ahead. How many know what I'm talking about? Strength is more than just a physical ability. Strength is something that is difficult to measure, but it is something that can be measured. My point in saying this morning is that our strength has its limits. How many understand this point today? Ooh, we're quiet. Come on. Our strength has its limits. No people are alike when it comes to levels of strength, but this one thing I know, that if we are not careful, our strength can and will run out. And most of the time, we begin to see warning signs of when this begins to happen. Some might get a little grumpy. Grumble, grumble, murmur, murmur, snarl, snarl. How many? Come on. There are some that get this grumpy, angry attitude begins to set in. Maybe it's irritability comes into play. Somebody that normally has a great level of patience all of a sudden becomes annoyed or irritated by the smallest things. Maybe it's a choice to lash out at others when the situation doesn't call for it. No matter the symptom, many people will begin to show signs when strength has reached its limit. Why? Because it is our strength that help keep these attitudes at bay in the first place. The world has a way, church, of testing us to just see how strong we are. With numerous issues that are hitting us in the face daily, listen to me, our strength is put to the test. And again, this goes way beyond our physical ability to run or to jump or to lift or to throw. True strength, in my opinion today, begins in the heart. I want that to sink in for just a moment. True strength, and again, this is my opinion, begins in the heart, in the soul, as a driving force to keep a person moving in the way he or she ought to go. We're going to look at a story this morning where Israel finds themselves in a place lacking strength. God's chosen people has faced their limits. And they begin to complain. Remember that warning sign that I talked about as a sign that we are beginning to lose strength, to lose sight of that passion? Israel begins to complain. We begin to see that warning sign where their strength has reached its limits. They begin to say that God had abandoned them. They failed to acknowledge that God, or that they had turned their back on God numerous times, but they felt God had left them, and because of this had become weak. If there's one thing that I have learned about my spiritual strength, church, it is this, that when I am weak, my God is strong. When I am weak, my God, He is strong. This is not to say that God is only strong when I am weak, but it reminds me that even on my best day, God is way stronger than me. This is to remind me that true strength is found in God and in His grace. For when my mind, body, heart, and soul cannot go any further, I have learned that His grace and strength can. But here's the key, and this is the lesson for all of us to learn today. The key is to not lose my passion for God. As seen in the story of Rocky, he lost his passion for the fight and it became about glory. Listen to me, church. Our relationship with Jesus needs to remain just that, a living, breathing relationship, a passionate relationship in which we pursue the one who gave his life for us with everything that we've got. Today we look at one of my favorite passages regarding the renewal of strength found in Isaiah chapter 40. Again, the Israelites are in a moment of weakness and complacency. God, through the prophet Isaiah, reassures his people that those who wait upon him will be renewed. I'm curious this morning, how many today could be used or benefit from a renewal of strength, both spiritually and physically today? How many would say, Pastor, I would benefit from a renewal of strength today? In a moment, we will give our opportunity for that to happen, but we must first learn and realize that our weakness and powerlessness are never roadblocks to God's grace. In fact, I would offer that such serves as a reminder of how desperately we need God's grace and strength on a daily basis. So as we begin to look at Isaiah 40, the first truth I want us to point out this morning is that all will reach their limit. All will reach their limit. And it's in this moment that we must all do something that I think is significant. Everybody take a deep breath and let it out. Why do we do that? Because we take a deep breath and we realize that we all have limits when it comes to strength. We are not Superman or Superwoman or Aquaman or whatever your superhero choice might be. Your strength has its limits. And in addressing the complaints of Israel, we see in Isaiah 40 verse 30, this realization come to the table. Even youth shall grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. Why is this excerpt put into this passage? Because there's this realization that no one can go on forever. No one is exempt from the truth today that our strength is limited, which is so important that we know and serve the unlimited God. Verse 28 says, do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. Look at this. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Come on. Israel had strayed from the way of the Lord time and time again and found themselves in bad situations. But God never abandoned them. God never abandoned them. In fact, toward the beginning of this chapter, the prophet speaks of a voice calling, or a voice of one calling in the wilderness. Prepare the way for the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. He is speaking of John the Baptist making the way for the arrival of Jesus, our Savior and Redeemer. Not only did God never abandon his people, but he gives reassurance that a Savior is on the way. God's grace remains despite our weakness, church. And this is critical for us to understand today. And we can find strength in his grace today. Paul, in the New Testament, he writes and understands this concept very well, as the Lord had taught him a lesson through the use of what he identifies and labels as a thorn in his side. How many can relate to what Paul is saying today when he talks about a thorn in his side, an aching issue or a situation that just simply will not go away? And he identifies this thing. He is given what he has described as a thorn in his flesh to keep him humble. It is a constant reminder that he needed to find strength in the Lord. He states in 2 Corinthians 12:8, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But look at verse 9. He said to me, what? My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. I want to go back to Isaiah 40, verse 29. It says, he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. He gives strength to who? Weary. Gives power to what? To the weak. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Moments of weakness, church, moments of struggle, moments of weariness and feelings of powerlessness are not a question of when or if they're going to happen, but of when. And we understand this morning that we face challenges every single day, sometimes hourly in life. Our faith, our strength is put to the test. Challenges that would otherwise drain us of life and strength. Thorns come in many different shapes, many different sizes. But they are a real part of our world, a real part of our life today. And they have a way of draining our strength. Some of the things we see in our culture today, thorns that have created some of the larger struggles, families under attack by both culture and spiritual forces. There will be days that our families are tested. It might be external, it might be internal, but mark my word, we will be tested. Amen. How many know what I'm talking about today? Come on. Faith is under fire and is discouraged in many ways in our society today. And I don't bring this up to be a discouraging word. I bring this up as a understanding that our nation needs Jesus. When put on the spot, will your strength hold out and make it through the test? Another area that I find to be very, very concerning is something that I think needs to be addressed more and more, specifically even from the pulpit, is the area of offense. Our culture has become very offendable. Division is gaining traction in our nation. We are the United States of America, not the divided States of America. One nation, somebody say it, under God. What's the next word? Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yet as a country, we're beginning to see dividing lines drawn, and we're beginning to see division and offense take hold. And church, listen to me. If we think that we as a church are exempt from such feelings, think again, because I'm beginning to see that influence even come into congregations and into leadership. Here's the problem. You will get hurt. Offense is not a question of if, but when. It might come through venues, as we talked about in Sunday school, such as social media. It might be coming through venues such as family members. It might come through venues. You can list it somewhere. There's going to be a time when your feelings are hurt, when your heart is trampled on. And the question today that I think is so important for believers to consider is, will it be in your heart to bring resolve to that offense, or will you simply go the world's way and begin to trash talk and begin to tear down instead of build up what God would place before you? What do you mean what God would place before you? Here's the thing. When we go God's way in the area of being offended, can I tell you, His way, His formula, if you will, is one of such that rebuilds relationships, not tears them down. Because He tells us that when we are offended, that we are to go to that individual. If that brother or sister has sinned against you, we go to that individual and we talk to them. We don't socialize on media or go to social media with that. We don't blast it out there on email. We don't gripe about these things. No, we go to that person and we talk to them with a level and a cool head. Come on. And we try to work this thing out. The key word here is resolve. We try to resolve the issue. And can I tell you something? I'll be honest, and I know I've shared this in a different area. I think it was a Wednesday night that I talked about this, but this was something I used to fear. Because I was afraid of that confrontation. Boy, I don't like confrontation. Anybody else really enjoy that? None of us do. Especially when it comes to those nearest and dearest to us. Hello? But what I've come to learn about Matthew 18 and forgiveness is that when we're willing to go to our brother, when we're willing to go to our sister, and we're willing to have that conversation, not a fight. Hello? If I go to okay. we're going to go this rabbit trail. If I come to Jim, and hypothetically, I've got a problem with Jim, and I come to Jim looking for a fight, guess what I'm going to get? I'm going to get a fight. And he's going to whoop me. Dominic, you don't need to nod your head so big there. That's all right. How many know what I'm talking about? Somehow, when we come to that table, I guess that's what you come expecting to receive, more than likely, that's what you're going to get. But if I come to my brother in love with this concern and say, hey, listen, man, this really hurt me, and I just need to share this with you. In the name of seeking resolve, in the name of strengthening this relationship, instead of allowing division to come between us, now we can talk. And what I can tell you is that in those situations, as intense as they can be in some of those moments, that when your brother or sister hears you, that relationship is strengthened, not weakened. But this spirit of offense that is grabbing a hold of our country, that is driving or building walls in between people who should otherwise be working together for the sake of His kingdom, but also to help continue to make this nation great, it's destroying us, church. Even when your anger is justified. And the hurt is real. Are you willing to stand? Are you willing to go God's way? Would you have the strength to go God's way instead of the world's way? These are but a few ways that our strength might be tested today. Your job might be struggling. Your finances might be strained. Your health might be going down. Your relationships might be stressful. Whatever the case might be, the list can go on and on and on. How are we supposed to make it with a limited level of strength? How are we supposed to navigate in a world that just seems to continue to pile it on and to pile it on and to pile it on? Here's the reality, and you need to just hold on for a moment. The truth is that we can't. But God can. And here is where we need to realize truth number 2, that God renews the strength of those who wait upon Him. Isaiah 40:31 says, those who hope in the Lord, or other translations might say those who wait upon the Lord, those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Our strength is renewed when we hope in or wait upon the Lord. His power and His strength is made known in our weaknesses, church. Listen to me. Renewed, lasting strength cannot be found in anything of this world. Why? Because like our strength, everything within the world is limited and temporary. Church, it simply will not last. It's kind of like junk food. I know it's getting close to noon and I'm getting kind of hungry. Just bear with me, church. It's kind of like junk food. When you need that quick pick-me-up. Maybe you're on the road and you've got another 100 miles to go and you're thinking, man, if I don't get something in my system, I'm just going to fall asleep at the wheel. Ever been there? Man, I made the mistake of doing one of those 5-hour energy things. I don't know how those things react to your body, but for me, it's like a 5-minute sugar rush. And then like a terrible crash of energy. Anybody else have that effect? Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But I remember I was driving home from Lincoln, Nebraska. And I'm behind the wheel and you kind of get that danger level where you know that I need to do something. I need to get out and stretch. I need to do something. So I pull over at a gas station and I see this little thing. And I've never taken any one of these things before. And I thought, hey, I'll give it a shot. And I remember thinking, man, for about the next 15 minutes, I mean, I'm like shaking. There's so much. It's like that adrenaline rush. You're just, woo, right? Watch that speed, brother. It's just you're ready to go. But then all of a sudden, as quickly as it came, man, boom, it's gone. And I was in worse shape after this quick fix, if you will. It's not what my system really needed. My system needed something that was good for me. Hello? Something that would sustain me, something that would go, instead of being a quick fix, I needed rest. I needed nourishment. And oftentimes, friends, listen to me, we go to that quick fix when it comes to strength in our own lives. And it might give us that quick pick-me-up. It might give us that quick boost to make it just a few more steps further. But if we're looking for that lasting strength that will stand the test of time, it can only be found in God. Why? Because He is unlimited. His power is unlike anything this world has to offer. And that is why I feel that it is so important that when we read Isaiah 40:31, in modern translations, it would say those who hope in the Lord. I like the King James Version where it says those who wait upon the Lord. There is something about waiting in God's presence and allowing God to pour into us and to renew us and to refuel us. And can I tell you something in our culture today? That is something we have forgotten how to do. The most common thing you'll hear people say when you talk to them regarding their status, if you will, "Hey man, how are you?" "Man, I'm busy." We know how to fill our work week with so much stuff. Technology was supposed to help us do more in less time so that we would have more time to leisure and to rest and relax. No way. Because once we reduce the number of hours that it took us to do this job, now we can do more in a day's work. And we run ourselves ragged. Can I tell you something today? We're going through the 10 Commandments at Sunday Night Church, and we're going to soon be hitting on the importance of Sabbath. There's a reason why God commanded His people to take a day of rest. Hello? There's a reason why God commanded, not only commanded, church, but displayed before us as an example. In the creation story, we see where God Himself took a day of rest. Can I tell you something this morning? And if you've not experienced yet, I'm sure you will. If you continue to go and go and go without stopping and finding renewal in the Lord, you will burn out. Pastor, that's just not very encouraging. Listen to me. Listen to me. God never intended us to try to take on this life alone. And when our fellowship with Him was severed by our choice to sin, He gave His one and only Son that fellowship might be restored again. That we might have that opportunity to know His strength, to know His presence, to know His power on a personal level, church. And I think it a privilege today to have that opportunity to hope in the Lord, to wait upon the Lord, to know that when I am running out, God is just getting started. And all I got to do is look to Him. All I got to do is take a time to allow His Word, to allow His presence to come in and to refuel me and to speak to me. Church, we can never lose sight of God's eternal strength, power, or glory. Remember the Rocky story for a moment. He traded his passion for the sport, for the glory and fame. He lost sight of his purpose and drive, and he lost the fight because of it. Church, I can tell you, if we lose sight of who God is, if we lose sight of His power, His love, His mercy, and grace, we risk, listen to me, we risk losing our passion for God and trading our relationship with Jesus for religion. Church, religion is powerless. Religion is going through the motions that are meaningless. Some might be saying, Pastor, did I just hear you right? Yes, you did. Because if your faith in Christ is nothing more than going through the motions, then we have a problem. Because going through the motions is not what Christ is looking for. He's looking for your heart. Come on. He's looking for your heart. You can know all the right things. You can do all the right things. You can have all the prayers memorized that you want. But if you don't know Jesus, we have a problem. Perhaps you're here today and you have forgotten how to hope or wait in the Lord. Paul pleaded with God 3 times before understanding that God's grace, despite his own weakness, is all that was needed. His grace is sufficient today. Do you truly believe that statement this morning? Amen. And I want to show a pattern here for just a moment that is emerging regarding God's grace and God's deliverance through the sermons that we've preached the last couple of Sundays. Last week, we talked about 3 men who walked in and out of a blazing furnace that were unharmed by the flames. We also spoke of Peter, who walked upon the stormy seas to get to Jesus. Now, in our passage today, we read of soaring on wings like eagles. What's the tie-in? Where am I going with this today? Eagles use the wind to soar. Have you ever watched an eagle fly in comparison to like a sparrow? How do eagles fly? How many have ever had the opportunity to see a bald eagle in the wild? Not in a zoo, but in the wild. In the wild. Anybody? Show of hands. How do they typically fly? They describe that. I mean, are they flapping their wings like crazy? They sit upon the treetops or they sit upon the cliff sides and stretch out their wings and they glide. The only word that I can think of to describe it's just beautiful to watch. Whereas if you come out to the Kansas wind, God bless Kansas, amen? You see those sparrows take off from the ground and try to fly against the wind. Have you ever seen that? And it's like they're motionless. They just sit there. Their wings are going 100 miles an hour. Come on, how many know what I'm talking about? Have you ever seen this? Right? But they're motionless. They can't move ahead. In fact, sometimes you see them start going backwards. And there they are, just burning out. Are you seeing where I'm going with this? They're trying to fight the wind and they're burning out. Their destination is before them, but they're trying to fight it with everything that they've got. Where the eagle, he learned to soar. The fire didn't touch the 3 men in the furnace. They still went through a bad situation, but God delivered them. Amen. Peter walked upon the water, yes, but the storm in that story had not calmed before he took that step out of the boat. He walked above the storm and waves. Amen. In this situation, we see where it says God will renew our strength. We will mount up on wings like eagles. It doesn't say that the wind will dissipate. It says that we will fly over it. Amen. Are you hearing me today? Something we can only do with the help of God the Father. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego survived that blazing furnace only because Jesus was in the midst of the flames with them. Peter was only able to walk upon the water because it was Jesus that he was going after. His eyes were locked on the one who had called him to come out of the boat. Are you hearing me this morning? Had he tried to step out of the boat under his own power and authority, he would have sank like a rock. Would have been swimming with the fishes. Are you hearing me today? And too often we're like that sparrow. Too often we're like Peter when we take our eyes off Jesus. We're fighting the storm. We're fighting the winds and waves. And we're trying to go where we think we ought to be going. But we've left God on the sidelines. Or taken our eyes off of the one who has called us to go that direction in the first place. Listen to me, church. When we hope in and play or wait upon the Lord, He renews our strength. He gives us that ability to soar on wings like eagles, despite the obstacles that might be ahead. The key is in waiting or hoping in the Lord. The power and grace that we need to make it through life can only come from God, but yet we try to fight as if we have the strength necessary to make it through. I urge you this morning to come to the same conclusion that Paul did. When I am weak, my God is strong. When I am weak, my God is strong. I want us to say that this morning together. You ready? When I am weak, my God is strong. And I would declare today that many face the issue of strength in a backwards way. When we feel like we can do life on our own, listen to me, that's not strength. That's weakness. It's a misplaced confidence in our limited ability. However, when we realize that all we need is Jesus. Come on. When we realize that all we need is Jesus, then we will find true strength through the one who is without limits. Amen. Church, we need His strength today. We need His grace. Do you believe that this morning? We need His strength. We need His grace. Worship team, if you would come join me this morning. We're going to move to a point of prayer here in just a moment. I asked a moment ago how many today needed their strength to be renewed. There were several hands that went up a moment ago. Can I tell you something today? You're not going to find renewed, lasting strength in any kind of energy drink or any kind of protein bar or any kind of self-help book or any kind of motivational poster. It can only come from the Lord. Amen. The key is in learning to wait or learning to hope in Jesus. We must place our hope and trust in Him. Amen. Doing so will result in a new strength and reassurance, as He will enable you to soar on wings like eagles. Hear my words this morning. Stop trying to fight the wind, for God will help you to rise above it. Yes. He wants to strengthen you. He wants to renew you. He wants to refuel you this day. Are you willing and able to see that when we are weak, our God is strong? If we can, all across this place, I want us to bow our hearts, bow our heads before the Lord. And this is a moment of heart examination, if you will. This is a moment of transparency. But again, at the beginning of the sermon, we asked how many could use a renewing touch from the Lord today. And more than half of the congregation raised their hands. Listen, we're good at trying to run ourselves ragged. Where I want us to be after today is good about going to the Lord, of waiting on the Lord, of placing our hope in the Lord so we don't run ourselves ragged no more. To trust in the one who is unlimited in strength, unlimited in power, who sees you, who sees your struggles, who sees your situation, who knows exactly where you are today. And maybe you're like me at one point in my life when I thought I could make it by going through the motions, when I thought I could do all the right things and say all the right things, and still, can I tell you something? In the midst of going to Bible college, I found myself run out, weary, completely tapped out of energy. And it wasn't until I got into the altar and repented and said, God, I'm sorry for trying to do this on my own. God, I am sorry for turning my relationship into religion. God, I am sorry for turning my back on you. And in that moment, God renewed me to a level of strength, a level of understanding. That aha moment, if you will, when He spoke ever so quietly in my spirit, when He said, Chris, I never intended for you to do this on your own. He is here. He is in this place today. He wants to renew you. He wants to strengthen you. He wants to refuel you. He wants to rebuild you right now. But we have to wait and hope in the Lord today.